It was the honor of our dojo to be polite and well educated, because it was the only way to communicate with people you don't speak the language. In Europe, we have many languages, so Kyudo code of behavior is enough. You don't have to speak. Eshajori. Meeting is departure. It's my motto since much before I started Kyudo. When the work is hard for me, difficult, I say, well, I started it, but it will end. And after it will end, another one will start, and life is death, and death is life. It seems strange to say I'm ready to die, but it's real. In a way, it's destiny.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Tokushikai Inside Look podcast. Today we're speaking with Laurence Oriou Sensei from Montpellier, France. Oriou Sensei has been training for over 31 years, during which time she's taught in seminars across France, Europe, and Toronto, Canada. In May 2005, Oriou Sensei became the first Western woman to receive the title of Kyoshi Rokudan, which is awarded for not only technical and aesthetic qualities of her shooting, but also possessing the human qualities required to be a leader within the French Kyudo community, the largest such Budo community outside of Japan. In this wide-ranging conversation, we talk about her start in Kyudo and the impactful moments, lessons, and relationships over 3 decades in this art. We talk about balancing competition and tradition, and wrap up with philosophy about life and death. I'm excited to share Oriou Sensei's deep and insightful thinking and experience around Kyudo, and I know that I'll be drawing ideas and inspiration from this interview for years to come. So, without further ado, here's Laurence Oriou Sensei from France.
Hello, my name is Laurence Oriou. I'm 55 years old now, and I was born in Provence. It's a region in the south of France. I traveled to Montpellier, more in the south, near Spain, to have my study program. When I was a student, I studied in Montpellier. As a young girl and student, I practiced dance and sports, especially handball. It's a play from Germany. It's great. I loved handball when I was young, and I practiced Western fencing. And when I stopped these activities because of hard time in studying, I discovered archery. And I started Western archery a very short time, but it wasn't enough for me. I mean, teaching was very focused on medals and target, and I didn't like it. I was interested in Japanese culture, especially arts. And suddenly I noticed in a newspaper an article about the seminar led by a Japanese sensei in Montpellier, a seminar of Kyudo, of course. I was 24 years old. It was my last year of studying in university, and I have to prepare my examinations. So I was very busy, but I decided to visit the seminar. It was a seminar for beginners, and the leader was Sato Kaori Sensei from Japan. Sato Sensei lived that time in Lyon, in France, a big town in France, for his job. And he taught in Lyon and also in Montpellier dojo for seminars. The very first time I saw Kyudo practice was this ceremony by Sato Sensei. I was so, well, when I think about this event, I'm still moved, It was the first time, of course, I practiced so long time, but I am lucky. I have opportunity to watch many hanshi in Japan and in Europe practicing various ceremony shooting. But this one was so special because it was the first one. And I saw this man very normal, nothing special about this man. But since the moment he entered the shajo, wow, it was like another world, something else, something behind the walls, And especially the moment I keep in mind and who made a revolution in my body and brain and heart was the moment when archer is in Kiza and Yatsugae. One arrow is pointing to the target and the other one is pointing opposite. And I don't know why. I was very interested, of course, in ancient myths and the history of Roman and Greeks in my own culture. And one of these gods named Janus Janus is facing the future and facing the past. Is the god for doors, is the god for transitions, beginnings, endings. And that time I understood something about this universal meaning of Eisha Jori. Something begin and it will end. And this figure represented by Sato Sensei, he was not aware of that, of course, but in my mind, I decided, oh, I want to do this. I want to be a part of this beauty, this meaning.
Wow. So for a lot of martial artists, we would say that probably more common is that they just started, they thought it was interesting, and then gradually they're like, oh, I guess this is my thing. But this was a set decision for you. Is that part of your personality? Do you decide on something and then go for it? Or was this a special case?
Oh no, I think it's part of my personality since I remember when I was very, very young, I remember these moments when the situation was like it was, and the two ways I had to choose one, and no reflection. Immediately, yes, I go. For example, I remember it was the festival of my school when I was, I don't know, maybe 9 or 10 years old. I don't know, something like that. And the master at school asked me to announce for each participants playing or dancing or singing, all the pupils. But he asked me at the last moment because he didn't think about it before, or I don't know. And he said, oh, Laurence, would you please take the microphone, go on the stage and announce every pupils? Oh, yes, I will go. And I was not obliged to do it, but I could have refused. But my feeling was, I can do it. The master asked me, so he's confident on my possibility of doing it. I go, no thinking. My body goes. So I remember this. I remember other moments in my everyday life or professional life when I decided to change my job, when I decided to change my way of working. Yes, many things.
Well, seeing that when you make this decision, something changes, I'm guessing that when you decided to do Kyudo, something else had to drop, although you probably were just finishing school, so maybe you had more time. But like, what changed when you said, okay, now I'm going to do Kyudo, and then your whole life path diverged?
I was in last year at university and it was so difficult. And as my parents have not a lot of money, I worked during my studies to pay and to participate to the fees. So I decided, because Kyudo is taught for free, it's not expensive teaching, but you have to buy equipment, you have to buy your association fee, etc. And I have no money at that time. So I decided to have a part-time job, one more. I clean baby home to have money to buy my first yugake. And so, yes, it changed a lot because timing was so strict. Studying Kyudo and studying and working and with sleeping and having examination. But my dedication was so strong. I could imagine giving up one of my scheduled activities. But in fact, the only thing I stopped, but it was not because Kyudo, was fencing because my sensei died. And I was so sad and moved that I couldn't start again fencing with another sensei. And hopefully Kyudo was here to offer me this special relationship between a sensei and a student. Because it's a part of Kyudo for me. Kyudo is not only about having a bow, a arrow, a target. Kyudo offered me so many experiences of relationship. Strong, difficult, horrible, but most of them fantastic, excellent relationships.
So you saw Sato Sensei do this Yawatashi, you participated in this event. What was the first few days, weeks, months at training? Was it at the university? Was it at a private dojo? What was that beginning like?
It was a small, well, that time it was a small dojo, a small group. And the senseis, local sensei, stopped Kyudo. She's a lady, and she stopped Kyudo a few years ago. But that time she worked in a children's hospital, and the hospital offered her a small place, very nice and small place, to practice makiwara training, only makiwara. And she had also a place in the countryside around Montpellier, an open air space in the vineyards. And this place, we had opportunity when it was not rainy to have 28 meters practice. And Sato Sensei, I met him once a month. We drove from Montpellier to Lyon, 3 hours driving, and we joined Lyon group practice in a proper Japanese style dojo. We practiced in Montpellier 2 evenings per week, and I had opportunity to join the 2 moments. And it was very difficult because Colmer Sensei and also Charles-Louis Oriou, my husband, who was the second rank in the dojo, they were so, I'm not sure in English, but wanted so much from the beginners. No right to fail. They asked us, not only me, everybody was in the position of being always aware of everything, the way of cleaning the dojo before and after, the way of wearing, the way of using equipment, respect between each others and respect equipment, and being quiet, mute, no question, observe and do. And it was for me very fantastic because my brain was full of teaching at university. And at that time, I had the opportunity to train Mitori Gecko, watch and train, watch and train. And then I used my body in a different way. First, working on posture and not on movement. It's different from what I learned in handball, for example. So I loved it.
Yeah, mentioning handball, that's a really active, like you have to be an athlete to be able to play something like that. And there's a little bit of aggression too, because you have to really battle each other to get to the ball and to move around. And now that fencing was gone too, did you find that you needed to keep up something more active, or did you do the switch and then Kyudo is going to be this slower, more calm type of activity?
I see. No, I stopped very active activities, very aggressive ones, because in a way, what pleased me more in handball and fencing was the feeling of my body in movement. I mean, for example, when we are practicing Kiza, for me, the two are very close. Posture and movements are very close. Hikiwake is about creating something very big and full, and Kiza is the same, but inside. I mean, the feeling in the legs, especially in the back, are nearly the same. And when I practiced handball, one of my favorite moments was when I had the ball and running very fast to go to the target. And this movement of smashing for me is, well, my memory. I didn't practice during a long time, but in my memory, the sensation, the feeling of muscles and joints in these movements is the same. So I didn't miss speed because when I had speed activities, when I practiced speed activities, it was not about speed, my interest. It was about feeling. So Kyudo is much more interesting about feeling than handball or fencing.
Mm-hmm. Well, taking that you had that kind of background, did you find that you were progressing a lot faster in Kyudo than I guess a normal student would? Do you get that sense when you're practicing Kyudo, either from senseis, from other people that are in the dojo, how fast you're progressing?
Well, my teachers, well, I can appreciate because I have a lot of years of practice. At the moment I practiced, my sensei, my teachers never gave compliments or judgment. They only say practice, practice, practice. And I liked it. Of course, they said sometimes, yes, okay, go on, you're on the right way, etc. But in the opposite, they never said, it's very bad or it's awful. No, never. Never too good or never too bad. Only the middle, the right middle. So I don't remember them saying, oh, you're going fast. It's more about other beginners. I noticed by myself that despite months of practice, some of them had difficulties to memorize the Japanese words, the sequences, especially ceremony practice. So I noticed by myself, maybe I was a little bit more quicker than them, probably because of health and physical condition, and probably because of very strong dedication. I wanted to succeed. I wanted not succeed having medals or something. It was not my interest, but I wanted to succeed what Sensei asked to me. My only pleasure was he or she asked me to do this. If I can see in her eyes or his eyes, it's okay. Well, wow, it's Christmas. That's it.
Mhm. When did you start feeling like you were getting it a little bit more? So you started at beginning, you were just kind of rushing from practice to school to work. When did that kind of smooth out and then become more of a regular thing?
Ooh, I'm always busy. I think it's my life. Gradually, I had responsibilities in Kyudo administration, first in my local dojo, then in my region in France. Around 6 years after beginning, I was included in the steering committee of French Kyudo Federation, and I quit only last year. So it's a long time. Maybe I would say last year or 2 years before, I started to practice differently. So it's very recent. Practicing Kyudo was always in a rush during the 31st years. Since 2 years, yes, my practice is different. Most of the time of my practice, I remember yesterday morning, for example, I starting new things. I dare to try new things. I mean, okay, I will go fast, boom, boom, and making hanare like it is, no thinking. So it took all that time to start to think different about my practice. It was a very long time.
Oh, wow. So 6 years in, and you're already on the steering committee for the nation. When was this kind of transition of being just a local student practicing and then traveling to Lyon to discovering that the Kyudo world was much larger, whether it's in the country of France or even internationally? When did kind of your view of this community grow?
Well, my view of the whole community started very early because my teachers and friends were, and it's always the same now, were all linked with Japan, with the senseis in Japan. And after practicing, we had dinner or drink, and everybody talked about ancient people, people who began in France, in Europe. And very, very, very early, I heard about Onuma Sensei, who was very important in Europe because he taught a lot of our ancient people in Europe. I saw pictures. And in France, there is always this tradition of speaking about the past and speaking about all relationships in Europe. We are very few people in Europe. Well, nowadays it's more and more because we are around 3,500 something.
Oh, wow.
in Europe. But these people who started Kyudo like me 30 years ago, a lot of people started at the same time and we are still practicing. So we maintain this memory of past and senpai and sensei. And that's why I've been aware very early, because my sensei spoke about all these relationships. And in Montpellier, we had this tradition of inviting sensei from outside the region, outside of France. So many people, 6 Dan people, came and visit the dojo. So it was very early, yes.
Mm. Do you remember when you started traveling outside of France to go to these events?
The first one, I think it was in Switzerland, Geneva, probably. Yes, probably when I met Charles Stamfli and Philippe Raymond. Philippe Raymond translated the book of Dan de Prospero and Onuma Sensei in French. And these people were very ancient Budo. So I think it was in Switzerland, probably 1 year after I started Kyudo. And then my first travel out of Europe for Kyudo was in Japan, in Miyako-no-jo. It was in 92. It was the first time a big seminar in Taikai was open to foreign people. And I was member of French Kyudo Federation delegation. And that time I had Shinsa for Sandan in Miyako-no-jo. Yes, it was in 92. And I succeeded the Shodan in Geneva and Nidan in Brussels, Belgium.
Mm. Could you describe what was the feeling of practice in these different countries? I'm sure like Japan must be very different from Europe, but even within Europe, maybe there are some differences. Could you talk about how were your expectations met or unmet at each of these different locations?
I see. Well, I would say Kyudo teaching in Europe was very harmonized. Any country you visit, I visited Spain to Italy, Great Britain. I visited, maybe I forgot countries, I'm sorry. Of course, Latvia, I'm teaching in Latvia. I think that time when I started, Kyudo teaching was very uniform. You were in Spain, you were in Switzerland, you were in Great Britain. It was almost the same atmosphere, the same rules. And my senseis, so my husband, Charles-Louis, and Marie-Thérèse, first sensei, always advised us to be very careful about our behavior during big seminars, international seminars. Because, of course, it was the honor of our dojo to be polite and well educated, and also because it was the only way to communicate with people you don't speak the language. In Europe, we have many languages, and not everybody speaks English or Spanish, or are the main represented languages. So Kyudo code of behavior is enough. You don't have to speak. So I would say same atmosphere, because we practiced in modern concrete gymnasium, organized as Shajo and Matoba. Yes, it was not very difficult. Maybe nowadays it's a bit different, because levels are very different between countries, between experiences of sensei, etc.
How did something like that happen? You all start out at a same level. Even in Europe, like France is huge in terms of Kyudo, like it's well known. If you all started around the same kind of level, how do you see the different countries growing at different rates?
Well, one very important point about development of Kyudo in Europe is probably, well, it's my opinion. It's not official position of France, of course. I'm not president since 2 years. So I think one main point is the attitude towards Taikai competition. Probably countries or groups who are linked to traditional Kyudo practice, they are not so interested in competition and Taikai. Of course, in France, we are interested in competition because we won the first World Cup and we organized the second one. So we try to keep balance between tradition and modernity. Probably, yes, the change, these differences lie on this attitude.
Mm-hmm. And I totally see that based on your results of winning at the Taikai, but also your teaching is very traditional and we can feel like it's just like the Japanese. That must be very hard to maintain, especially when inside an individual, it's already hard trying to battle those two needs and wants. But then there's also the battle between other people that are leading the groups. How has France been able to manage this balance so well?
You mean balance between the traditional and modern or competition?
Yes, exactly. Because there's
Mm.
probably some senseis that are more towards one, more towards the other, and saying, we're going too far, you need to pull it back, and others probably want to push it.
Not really. I think it's harmonious, nearly harmonious. Of course, people are on the borders, but most of us are in the middle, because I think we are aware of living in a I don't know in English, a non-religious state. France is non-religious state.
Oh,
Religion is not at the top of a state. The president is not religious. He's not the head of a religion in our country. So in French, it's named laïcité. I don't know in English, I'm sorry. And everybody in France is convinced that philosophical, religious, spiritual matters must be separated from activities. So when you practice Japanese or Oriental disciplines, everybody think, oh, is it a sect? Is it a religion? Oh, it's strange. So we are aware of separating things. Of course, if you want to practice Zen, if you want to practice, I don't know, you're free to do it, but don't teach it during Kyudo. This special way of thinking about philosophy and practice probably helped us in France to separate and accommodate and accept the two practice together, linked but in parallel. I don't know if it's very clear, but it's an hypothesis about the balance between tradition and modernity.
That's just amazing because I found that even in arts like Kendo or Iaido, which I'm more familiar with, there's always groups of people that are totally against the competition and say we need to be more traditional and do it for the whole character improvement part. And then there's the opposite side that just want to compete, and it's always hard to balance. But I guess it's done very well in France, and probably a reason why you have so many people. Could you talk about your experience going to Japan, not just for the training, but meeting the people and also exploring the culture, maybe some tourism, maybe some food stuff? Just what is your experience of Japan?
Sure. Japan for me is a big adventure, a big event each time I visit Japan. The very first time I visited Japan, it was for this tournament and a seminar in Miyako-no-jo. But we had time to visit Tokyo and Kyoto, as everybody does when you go to Japan. I was very impressed, really. I was impressed first by the people being very organized in transportation, in the street. These big streets crowded with people. I had to imagine in Paris. Well, I never lived in Paris. I was born in the countryside, and Montpellier is not a big town, big city. But I know what a big town is. I visited United States, several towns. Only in Japan, I've noticed this etiquette in the street. People are moving the flow of people is so neat and clean and peaceful. It's strange, but it was okay for me. I liked this atmosphere. And my strongest shock, but it was a good shock, was visiting Japanese Zen gardens. I love gardening. I'm lucky I have a garden with my husband near our house. But this special organization of gardens, plants, and it was so beautiful, so beautiful. And more than plants and gardening, it was spiritual experience. About food, I love Japanese food. It's so delicious. I try at home to cook Japanese food, but I fail each time. So my great pleasure is to have Japanese food when I visit Japan. Yes.
If there are common places that you go in Japan, are there any recommendations?
It's difficult. I like experience. I can't say one, especially one, because most of the time Japanese friends guide me and I go with them. So I'm not able to find the right way to go and visit again. I'm sorry.
Okay. So you've been to Japan to train by yourself. Have you been in a large group going together?
Well, I had the opportunity to join two different groups once. And during several years with my husband, we visited the Chuo Dojo in Tokyo. And we had the opportunity to join everyday practice with the group. But Chuo Dojo is a big, big group. So we didn't practice with same people regularly. As we were working hard that time, we had only 1 week to spend to Japan, 1 week or 2 weeks. So it was short to create relationships with people in the group.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you would mind, but would you talk about your relationship with your husband? How did that develop? It's more common these days that you find couples doing the arts together, but even then it's quite special when it happens. So would you mind talking about your experience meeting,
Yes.
getting to know each other, and then developing over time?
Yes, thank you. Well, in fact, my husband was my first sensei. Not first, Marie-Thérèse was first one. Sato sensei was first image of sensei. But in this relation, very early, I separated love and Kyudo. Because I saw a lot of people starting Kyudo and wishing the wife or husband or boyfriend, girlfriend start Kyudo with him or her. And they asked me, "Oh, how do you succeed in being in love with this man and practicing Kyudo with him?" And I said, love is not enough. Practice Kyudo. If you have no personal dedication to Kyudo, stop. Well, go on loving, but stop Kyudo. Kyudo is too demanding, and love is not enough. And maybe the risk is to stop loving your your boyfriend or girlfriend. My experience is that I have interested in being in love with this man, and I had interest in starting and going on Kyudo practice. Both were separate. And of course, in the dojo, nobody could imagine we were partners that time and nowadays. Well, one is leading the seminar or teaching in the dojo in the group of Montpellier, and the other is training. And we change because in Montpellier we are three Shogosha people, Régine Graduel, Charles-Louis Oriou, and me. And to have opportunity to train each other, we turn. For example, Monday, Charles-Louis is leading. Wednesday, it's me. And Saturday, it's Régine. So no familiarity, no special kind words. Sensei is sensei and practicing is practicing.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, it's wonderful to share the same passion and to share what we are looking for. I mean, if I'm working on Tenouchi, as Charles-Louis is much better than me about Tenouchi, when I decide to work something, I can ask immediately. He's at home, so I can ask every day, every time when I want. I don't have to wait for the seminar with him. It's wonderful.
How do you decide on trade-offs and when one person has to stay home or do something and the other person, like a lot of times you can both attend seminars or both go to certain things, but there's going to be occasions where you can't. How do you make those decisions? And do you have examples of ones that you've had?
Well, no problem. It's very often one goes to a seminar and the other can't. It's never because of common reasons. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, I know. Last year, one of the trees in our garden had to be arranged because it was cut by the tempest, by the thunder. And there was a seminar, but we had to treat this tree in a hurry. But we decided, no, it will wait. We will do it next week. And together we go to the event, Kyudo event. But when we go separately, it's because of personal reason. For example, when I started a new job, during 2 years, I was not able to visit Japan. So Charles-Louis went alone. Of course, every day we had Skype and he explained to me, oh, sensei said that and that. I practiced like this, like that. And he gave news from friends who attend seminars, but it was never for common reasons, mutual reasons.
So we've talked about you and your husband, your peers now. You talk about some of your senseis. Are there some people that are junior to you, either kohai or students or people in the federation that you see around that give you motivation for the future? Like, are there people that when you see, you're like, okay, this was me when I was young. Could you talk about some of these people?
I've met so many beginners in my life, and a lot of them gave up and quit Kyudo. So I'm not very proud of this. I don't know if I have the right attitude to help people go on Kyudo, but it's so personal, individual choice that, okay, I know that I'm not responsible for everything in the world. Well, the beginner who is in my mind now is the last one. I mean, I started to work with Nicolas. Nicolas is a young boy, a young man. He started in very difficult context because he started during COVID. He started 3 weeks ago. and is so dedicated. Maybe I was like him when I started. Of course, he is a student. He has to work to pay his university. He is practicing archery, Western archery too. And he has no time, but it takes time to practice Kyudo. So when I meet him, when I meet Nicolas, I say, oh, maybe he's very courageous. He is wishing a lot. And we had very funny experiences. I posted one on my Facebook page. Of course, practice in gymnasium are forbidden now in France for I don't know how many weeks or months or years. I don't know. So we are lucky. We have a place in the countryside. And of course, as it is open air and really countryside, we have no electricity, no wires. So I have this picture. I have, I don't know, a front
It's like
headlamp, yes. And I'm showing him how to make a proper hanare. And it's so strange and funny. I imagine if I had started Kyudo in this condition, how could I don't know. I'm very moved by this dedication of Nicolas practicing in this condition. So I gave my best to teach him.
So how do you see right now the situation in France with COVID locking everything down, and winter is coming too?
Yes, winter is coming.
What is your plan for winter?
Well, it sounds crazy because we have to change our way of teaching, the way of welcoming beginners. I mean, Kyudo is based on group relationships. Inside Tachi, 5 people, each one has his role. And it's difficult to have this distance practice and explain about group and relation inside group, harmony, breathing, etc. So we try to do our best. We organize web meetings. We organize web conferences about pedagogy between teachers, but nothing can replace direct teaching, physical relation. It's like art, dance, or singing. In my job, I'm a specialist of quality for vocational training companies. And I'm specialized in these companies who practice singing, dancing, art education. So now, every day, as we are in Kyudo, everybody are stopped in its practice. And it's very strange. How could we improve Kyudo teaching only by digital way? It's strange. I'm not very comfortable with this idea.
And how about your own training? You even mentioned that in the last 2 years, you said you started experimenting with more things. Could you give us some examples of things that you're doing now that's different than even 2 years ago, you were saying?
Well, in fact, my body changed and my abilities are different. About physical ability, I started to have a new bow, lighter bow. And sometimes I'm very strong, so I could have a stronger bow, but I'm dealing with it like beginners do. So, I mean, this experience is very new for me because I was able to have a 16-kilo bow very easily. And I was thinking about having maybe 18 kilos. For a woman, it's a big one. But in the opposite, I'm trying to manage weakness, strength, and keeping beautiful feeling. It's difficult. Yes, it's about that. And about training, I try to be concentrated more in relationship in the group. I mean, when I studied Kyudo at the beginning, I was concentrated more in myself, my feelings, my technique, my movements. Now I try to think, well, this movement of doing torikake and tenouchi, this movement of raising this bow is a part of a bigger movement, everybody moving together. And it's very interesting. Difficult to explain, especially in English, which is not my native language, but that's it. I try to move as if I was the little finger of a bigger body.
Wow, that's a great analogy. And I found that's one of the things I found with Kyudo too, because there's Tai-Hai, that there is the moving together with other people. In Kendo, you might have two people fighting each other. In Iaido, it's a solo art. But even though Kyudo, it's solo, there's still that aspect of having to move as a group and adjust to different people, different timings. It's one thing I miss about the practice.
I see. So why not come again in Kyudo?
I might, yeah. It's already on my mind, especially when I'm talking to other Kyudo people around the world and how much they've maintained. And yeah, it's really motivating me. So in the last few minutes, I have some quick questions that I want to kind of go through. They're more on the fun side. You can answer or you can decline. First one would be, do you have a quote or proverb that you live by or that you practice by?
Well, definitely Esha Jori. Meeting is departure. It's my motto since much before I started Kyudo. When work is hard for me, difficult, I say, well, I started it, but it will end. And after it will end, another one will start. And life is death, and death is life. And each time I finished my copy for Shinsa in Kyudo, they ask you, why do you practice Kyudo? Or why do you start it? Even in my paper for Kyoshi Shinsa, I talked about death. Well, it seems strange to say I'm ready to die, but it's real. I'm not in charge of children. Well, of course, my parents needs me sometimes because they are old and ill, but in a way, it's destiny. So Esha Juri is everyday motto. Quote.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so important to recognize that there's always something else about being alive. Are there unique quirks or side interests maybe people might not know about you? Do you have any current interests or activities that you do that might be funny or interesting for people that even know you for a long time?
Funny or interesting, I don't know. I'm so transparent. I think everybody knows my life, so I don't know. Maybe something few people know. So I spoke about my work now. I changed work recently, and I discovered this school of clowns. Clowns with a red nose?
Yeah.
In circus, clowns. How do you say in English?
Yeah, we call them clowns.
Clowns, yes. And I help them in reaching a high level of quality of teaching. It's my job. Not only clowns, every kind of company in arts. And these people, when I started to work with them, I thought, oh, clowns, it's crazy. What's going on? How could they practice in quality? Wow, strange. And I discovered that clowns are very, very serious people. And very organized, and they teach clown art like Kyudo, you know? Yes, it's the same. The way of standing, the way of moving. Of course, they speak, but when they put cosmetics on their face, when they put a nose on, when they stand at each other, wow, it's incredible. There is an etiquette in clown practicing. So I don't know if it's funny about me. It's funny about my discovering of this special discipline. Maybe I will do clown and Kyudo together. I will start Kyudo and clown class. I don't know.
Well, I don't know in Europe, but in North America, Halloween is in 1 week. So,
why not?
yes. If someone were to open your YouTube account, what videos would be recommended on the front page?
Practicing Taski Sabaki or being, well, I don't have YouTube page, but if I had one, I would recommend to watch videos about Satake Sensei. Satake Mariko Sensei. Doing the most beautiful video for me is Satake Sensei practicing Daiichi Kaizoe for Akiyama Sensei. Wow, it's incredible.
If I recall correctly, Kaizo is one of the assistants.
Yes, yes.
So you're recommending watching the assistant?
Yes, yes, yes. I don't know the name of the video, I'm sorry, but you can find easily on YouTube.
Okay. In closing, do you have any message or any concept idea or thing you want to say to close this off, either recommending to students of Kyudo or even for general Japanese Budo?
Budo is lesson of life, lesson of death. And let's do it. Let's try. And be honest with you. If you are not made for Kyudo, give up. But if you think you have a small hope to do something in Kyudo, practice Kyudo. very humble, very clear and transparent. No lie. Be honest in your practice. If you are not made for Kyudo, stop. But if there is a small wish, a small hope to realize something in Kyudo, well, it's your duty to do it.
Wow. If there's any other type of motivation, I can't think of a better one. Thank you so much for your time. This was a great conversation. Very motivating, very inspiring.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you so much. Thank you for the interview.
Have a great rest of your day.
Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that episode because we have a lot more exciting conversations to share as we explore the world of the traditional Japanese martial arts. The Inside Look podcast is available on most common podcasting platforms and on YouTube. Remember to subscribe to not miss out on new interviews as they are posted. We're always looking for feedback to improve, so please write us a review or drop us a line at podcast@tokushikai.ca or on Facebook and Instagram at tokushikai.canada. Until next time, thanks for listening.